Hey guys, welcome back to our podcast, A Court of Heaven and Hel. I'm Lauren, aka Heaven.
And I'm Ellie. I'm also known as Hel.
And if you don't already know, we are a book podcast currently focusing on the romantasy novel A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. In this episode, we will be continuing our coverage of A Court of Thorns and Roses with chapters 36 through 46. The episode structure will be first, plot summary, second, character discussions, third, foreshadowing, and finally, we will end with our theories and Maasverse connections. That being said, at this time, I want to go ahead and give a spoiler warning. This episode will contain spoilers for any books in the ACOTAR series. In order for us to fully dive in, we may need to speak about the other books in this series. If you have not finished her other works, you will be safe until the theories portion, where we will give another big spoiler warning. So if you have not finished the 5 books in this series, then make sure you save this video and come back to join us when you're done.
All right, everyone. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit under the weather. My voice is a little bit congested. I'm sorry about that. I'm recovering from a cold, but we wanted to go ahead and get this episode out for y'all. So, in addition to our spoiler warning, we want to give y'all a content warning. Please see our show notes for content and trigger warnings. We are an explicit podcast and we definitely curse a lot. Please make sure to check out our other ACOTAR episodes if you haven't yet. And if you're interested in hearing us talk about her other books, we have several episodes about Crescent City, including the newly released House of Flame and Shadow. Make sure to follow us for future episodes where we will be reviewing and theorizing the rest of the ACOTAR series and other romantasy novels. Finally, if you're watching this video, please comment and subscribe or rate and review if you're listening on a podcast platform. It's our 11th episode that we've done. So we're making our way and we love growing this podcast and we love that people listen to us. It's so fun. And it's so weird to think about too.
It literally blows. Yeah, it's crazy, but thanks, guys. All right, guys, starting with chapters 36, the full moon has risen and it's time for Feyre's first challenge. She's dragged out in front of Amarantha, the High Lords, and a gladiator-style crowd before being dropped into a labyrinth of trenches by the adder. Amarantha hits her with the, "I heard you like to hunt. Hunt this," and releases a worm straight out of Dune. With the massive worm on her tail, our girl Feyre is frantically trying to get away. She's able to slip through a small opening in the wall, expecting the worm to be right behind her, but it breezes on by. She pieces together that it's blind right before distractedly running into a giant open pit. No, not a pit, a graveyard. The worm's dead. Now the ideas are flowing, and she MacGyvers a stepping stool out of the scattered bones to make her escape. But that's not it. She fashions an entire true-de-loo and covers herself in worm excrement. Ryzan seems into it, so Feyre flips him off, and now it's game on. She takes off running, actually managing to do some damage before losing the worm again. Lucian yells out a warning. Thank God somebody's actually on her side, and Feyre barely escapes becoming worm dinner, worm dinner. She's got it now, though. With the running start, Feyre long jumps the fuck out of the open pit. She's booby-trapped. But she's not unscathed as something impales itself in her arm. It's okay for now, though, because Feyre turns to stare down at her kill. She did it, but she's pissed. She turns, baring her teeth at Amarantha before throwing her bone spear at her feet, splattering her with mud. Then she's dragged back to her cell with the knowledge only one person bet on her, and now her arm is mangled. Moving on to chapter 37. Alone and covered in filth, freezing, Feyre is just rotting away in her cell. She knows she most likely has an infection, but she's trying really hard to convince herself it's not true. No one has come to help her. That is, until the Lord of Night himself appears in the cell. Trusting of him, Feyre tells him to fuck off, but she is so weak, he knows it's all bark. After demanding to see her arm, Rhys is enthralled by the gruesome scene and, like some kind of folk devil, offers her a deal. Spend 2 weeks a month with him at the Night Court or die. Feyre tells him to go to hell, so he straight up assaults her, reaching out and twisting her arm so she's in excruciating pain. She spits in his face in response, And laughing, he tells her he won't offer again. Feyre is ready to let him leave, but realizes he's right. She's dying, and she doesn't know if she can count on Lucien to save her. Afraid that if Amarantha's healers become involved, they may cut off her arm, she begins to bargain with Rhysand. She dwindles the deal down to 1 week a month and strikes the deal with Rhys with no further knowledge on what it entails. Well, now she has a half sleeve and is freaking over Tamlin's reaction, but her arm is healed and she's not covered in filth anymore.
If it was that easy to get a half sleeve, that'd be great.
Yeah, wouldn't it? Just,
Instant.
yeah, hot man, I'll make a deal with you. And then boom, you got a badass
It's
sleeve.
totally fine that you twisted my arm. It's totally cool, though.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, I have such mixed
I'm
reviews.
sure we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we definitely
Yeah.
will. I'm like mixed reviews. I'm talking mixed opinions, but all right. Chapter 38. Laden with an impossible task, Feyre is scrubbing the floors with dirty water, trying to avoid becoming a chestnut roasting on an open fire. Frustrated, knowing Amarantha is fucking with her, she's about to give up when someone familiar appears. She quickly realizes it's not Lucien, but the resemblance is there, minus the mask and being a dude. It's his mama, and in an act of gratitude for saving Lucien, she provides her with clean water to scrub the floors before promptly leaving with her debt now paid. The next day comes with another impossible task, but this time she unknowingly finds herself in Rhysand's room. After digging through the fireplace looking for lentils for a couple of hours, Rhys himself shows up and shit starts getting deep. We learn that no one knows about them and their bargain yet. Amarantha tasked him with putting the head in the garden, and that being out on fire night was important to him, and he paid a price for it. Emboldened by their open conversation, Feyre asks him if he knows the answer to the riddle, and while he does, he's unable to tell her due to Amarantha's command. She's powerful, and if she demands it, so it shall be. Since Rhys likes his women bold, he bestows a small gift upon Feyre, magically cleaning her up again and using the scraps of his power to killgrave the guards. They are not to give her any more impossible tasks, and if they touch her, they have to gut themselves. Thanks, Reezy. All right, chapter 39. Things have changed a bit, and now Feyre's receiving real meals in her cell. After a few days of possible hallucinations, is the eye blinking? And pondering the riddle to no avail, two shadowy ladies show up in her cell. They pull her from the cell, scrub her down, paint her like she's a Picasso, and throw her in a sheer-ass bathing suit with a skirt before Rhysand, of all people, shows up. He's super into Feyre's new look and shows her the purpose of the paint before letting her know he's a possessive bad boy who doesn't like to share. They stroll into the throne room, and boy, is everyone on edge. Both Amarantha and Tam look pissed, but are really trying hard not to show it. If no one knew about the bargain before, everyone knows now, and Rhys is using it to play games. After receiving Amarantha's blessing to enjoy the festivities, Rhys offers Feyre some wine, coaxing her into drinking it with his mind powers. After waking up the next day with a hangover from hell and not remembering anything, Lucien comes to visit Feyre. He fills her in on some of the finer details and asks why she would accept Rhys's help and bargain. Letting him know that she wasn't sure she could trust him, we see that Amarantha's cruelty runs deep. Before he leaves, Feyre asks him about Tamlin's well-being, thinking that he's been bespelled by Amarantha. But we find out, no, he's just Silent Bob because he thinks that's the best way to help. Thanks, Tampon. As if she's in Groundhog Day, the same events seem to keep repeating themselves night after night until the night before her second trial. Rhys takes her to court, as he's been doing, but tonight, something's different. Amarantha immediately calls on him to interrogate a fairy from the summer court in front of everyone. After gaining little information from him about his plans, Rhys melts his brain, irritating Amarantha, who wanted a crueler fate for the traitor. He appears unshaken, but Rhys also downs a glass of wine alongside Feyre that night. In chapter 40, now it's time for the second task. Feyre is lowered into a small pit to discover Lucien on the other side of an iron gate. Amarantha reveals the task to be another riddle, but with multiple choice this time. Easy, right? No. The riddle is written on the wall, and if Feyre doesn't answer fast enough, her and Lucian will be brutally squashed under slowly lowering spikes. This still wouldn't be an issue, minus the fact that our girl can't read, and even she knows solving riddles is not her greatest gift. With time closing in, she makes a guess, but when she reaches for the lever, her hand begins to feel excruciating pain. She lowers, then tries again, before switching to another. Again, her hand hurts. So finally, she tries the last lever and no pain. Realizing it's Reese guiding her, she has no choice but to trust him and pulls the last lever. The spikes stop, much to Lucian's relief. She's beaten the second task. Knowing that she shouldn't have survived, Feyre begins to break down until a voice in her head brings her back. Reese tells her to show strength and not let Amarantha see her cry. As instructed, she stares Amarantha down and turns, heel, walking back to her cell with her head held high until the door closes, and she falls down weeping. Feyre isn't doing well alone with her thoughts. Still weeping after some time, Rhysand shows up to comfort her. Where the fuck is Tamlin?
Period.
Anyway, Rhysand licks her tears away. That got her to stop crying. She acts disgusted, but Rhys tells her he could have sworn he felt something else down that bond of theirs. After teasing her about not being able to read, he tells her he's giving her the night off tomorrow. But after that, things will be back to business as usual. She's upset by his visit, but after some time alone, Feyre comes to the realization that Rye's coming by stopped her from breaking. Now we're in chapter 41, and still reeling after the events of the second trial, Feyre's thoughts are getting dark. She begins looking forward to the relief of losing herself in the fairy wine, and the thoughts of her future are bleak. While walking her to the chambers to prepare her for another night of debauchery, the shadowy handmaidens pull Feyre into a hidden alcove after hearing the adder. Feyre, thinking they're hiding at first, quickly realizes they are more so spying for information, and they hear some juicy shit. The King of Hybern is not happy with Amarantha's little game, and is worried it will affect the plans he has for the continent. She fucked up the last war with her madness about Durian, and if she does it again, shit won't be good for her. Amarantha may think very highly of herself, but the King of Hybern is more powerful. Feyre, scared of what she just overheard and worried for her family, asks the maidens if Rhys knows, and they inform her he will soon. With the last trial growing ever closer, Feyre is sinking further and further into her darker thoughts until she hears music in her cell 2 nights before the final task. Connecting to the music from her soul, Feyre is lifted out of her grief and starts to remember who she is, why she's here, and what she's fighting for. Chapter 42. It's the last night before the trial, and Feyre is at yet another party. Tired of the charades and just wanting to get the night over with, she wonders when Rhys will grow bored with the other fairy he's dealing with and come to collect her. While off to the side waiting, who shows up? But damn, I'm so glad he's finally decided to join us. He saunters off into the crowd and beckons her to follow him into a private room while they're unnoticed. I'm sure he's going to tell her something really helpful and important, right? No, he doesn't. He doesn't waste any time getting hot and heavy with her before being busted by Rhys. Rhys chides Tamlin for the behavior, and Tamlin simply gathers his things before quietly whispering, "I love you," and heading back to the party. Super helpful, dude. Rhys begins chastising Feyre for her stupid behavior before he starts kissing her without warning. Amarantha comes in a moment later, catching them in the act. She laughs with the court, calling out the fickleness of human hearts. Tamlin can't even bring himself to look at Feyre. Hours later, Rhys comes to pay Feyre a visit. Tired and stressed over the situation he's in, he begins to vent to Feyre. We learn that he's not just some sicko who likes playing games, and that every action he's taken has been part of a bigger picture. He hates Amarantha for making him play the whore, and she chose him as her plaything because his father killed Tamlin's, her friend. He said too much and tells Feyre if she's smart, she would betray him to Amarantha. As he's getting ready to leave, Feyre realizes he kissed her to save her ass. And maybe, just maybe, he's not a villain.
We're in chapter 43, and Feyre finally gets to her third trial, but before she starts, she tells Tamlin how much she loves him.
Cute.
Yeah, super cute. 3 fairies with bags over their heads enter the throne room, and Amarantha tells her that she has to kill them to pass the trial. Amarantha makes this even worse for Feyre by having the 3 fairies remove the bags covering their faces. She has to look them in the eye when she kills them. She kills the first 2. She has a really hard time doing it. It's like really dramatic. Their family members and friends are in like the fucking crowd crying. So after she kills the first 2, guess who's under the third? It's Tamlin. The Tamlin who was next to Amarantha that she said I love you to was actually an adder that was disguised as him.
Great
There's
trick.
that.
Great trick.
Feyre is left with an impossible task of, quote, kill him and save his court and my life, or kill myself and let them all live as Amarantha's slaves. Feyre has racing thoughts, and she remembers Alice's advice to listen. She has this moment where everything she's ever heard in the Supreme Court is just in her head, and she remembers, wait, it's been repeated so many times that Tamlin has a heart made out of stone. This whole book, she doesn't believe in fate, but during this moment, she decides to trust fate, and she stabs Tamlin in the heart. Woo! Woof. All right, chapter 44. The blade hits Tamlin's heart, and it is indeed actually made of stone. Amarantha is shook, and Rysand is grinning ear to ear, knowing his future mate is a baddie.
Get it, girl?
But since Fae bargains are tricky, Tamlin's mask doesn't fall off, and Amarantha says that Feyre never said when she had to free everyone. Which it's like, Amarantha, she literally passed the trials. Just give up. Come on.
Come on, Amarantha's a cold-hearted bitch. She's gonna hold on to power as long as she can.
Amarantha goes fucking insane and starts pulling Feyre apart from the inside out. During this, Rysand is crouched next to Tamlin, and she notices that he's grabbing the knife that stabbed Tamlin. Rysand goes to attack Amarantha, but she pushes him away with magic, and she is still killing Feyre while Tamlin finally begs for her to stop.
Finally, you got a voice, motherfucker.
Feyre thinks of the riddle that Amarantha gave her and comes up with the answer, love. And as she's giving her answer, Amarantha kills her by snapping her spine. When I first read this, I was like, oh!
Fucking bitch.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean she died?
No, literally.
Don't worry, it's SJM.
We good here. It's all good.
We're good. Chapter 45. Feyre is seeing herself dead from Rysand's point of view. And the mask finally comes off. Lucien is free. Tamlin is free. Amarantha is begging for her life now that everyone has their full powers back. This bitch is fucked. She lost. She could die. Tamlin literally rips out her throat and stabs her, like in her head. It's gross, but it's deserved.
And it's well earned.
Period. All the High Lords go to Tamlin, where he is now holding Feyre's dead body, and they all give a bit of their power to revive her. And then Tamlin's like, I love you. Okay.
I can't.
All right, last chapter of this book.
I just want to make it clear that was not for Tamlin. I just make that clear. I'm thinking about the other boy in this situation. I am not thinking about Tamlin.
Okay. So chapter 46, Feyre wakes up. She is so much stronger. She notes that she has longer fingers and that she is now a high fae. What? Shock.
Shut the front door.
Feyre sees Tamlin's full face for the first time, and thankfully, she doesn't think he's ugly.
Thank God.
You never know. You never know.
You don't.
It's a way that I would have been like, what does Lucian look like,
No,
though?
literally, I'd have been like, can I see Lucian without the fox mask? Because, like, I was kind of
Yeah.
into it with the mask. So, like, what do you do without the mask, though?
Period. Also, Tamlin has his heart back, his actual heart. It's not made out of stone, but he still acts like it's
Wouldn't
made
know
out of
it by the
stone.
second book. You wouldn't know it. You'd have thought they were switched around.
When Amarantha died, the Adder and Lucian's brothers left immediately, knowing they would be killed. As Feyre is feeling extreme guilt from killing the fairies, she notes that people are cheering for her, and she is now a curse breaker.
Oh,
Yay!
yay.
So Feyre and Tamlin go off and decide it's a good time to have sex. So that happens.
Now I'm uncomfortable.
Me too. I was like, all right, we just went through something super traumatic. Let's just have sex.
To be fair, oh God, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it's better than having sex in a war camp the night before everybody's about to die.
I'm gonna sip on my. For me, I literally like physically cannot have sex in this scenario, but I guess other people might be able to. But it's like I would need answers. Like
For me,
I just killed someone.
For me, I physically cannot have sex with Tamlin, so I need answers.
That's so fair. Oh, fuck, that was funny. Okay, so after Feyre and Tamlin have their little woohoo moment, during the night, Feyre feels a pull, and she knows who is waiting for her at the bedroom door. It's Rhysand. This part means a lot.
Aww.
He is there to say goodbye and to remind her of their deal. She says she feels high fae, but her heart is still human. He is saying goodbye and about to vanish when all of a sudden he looks shocked and his nostrils flare right before he disappears. And we know what this means. We'll talk about it in our foreshadowing. Tamlin and Feyre leave under the mountain as Tamlin destroys the opening to it. They return back to the Spring Court where Feyre ends the book with, "Let's go home."
Aww.
And that is the end of the first book of ACOTAR.
Ah, we made it, you guys! I can't believe it! Oh, gosh, it's
We did
so
it.
good. The ending's so good.
Now we have to get into the real shit.
Yeah.
We're about to get in some discussions.
Yeah, let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about it.
Okay, so let's start with our character discussions. One of the important side characters in this book that comes back in another book is the High Lady of the Autumn Court.
Aww.
I love her, to be honest.
I do too. She is like kind of a tough cookie. She's not just like giving of love right off the bat, but she loves her son so much, and she needed to make sure that Feyre was taken care of after the act that she put herself in danger to save Lucian's life. And we love that we see kind of where Lucian gets it from.
Yeah, she has all these terrible sons, but Lucian's not.
Lucian's more like her, where all the other sons are kind of more like their dad. Except for Eris. Eris is still up in the air.
Eris, I don't know my opinion on him, but
yeah,
we'll talk about it more in Silver Flames, but I'm holding out for him,
me too.
is all I'm saying. Because
Yeah.
I think there's more to him than what we think.
For sure. And then, of course, we have our main cast of characters. We've got Feyre. Feyre proves herself to be very brave, obviously. Anybody who's going to travel back literally into danger knowingly is going to be brave just to save the person that they love or they think they love. She is street smart. Maybe not book smart, but our girl is street smart. She's fierce. And in this book, she has a lot of changing beliefs. In this book, she kind of realizes that fate is real and hope is a powerful thing, like her father said, where before she did not believe in it at all. And that was due to her circumstances. She had a rough go of things early on in life and early in this book, and she had to step up in a big way when her family needed her, and I think that kind of jaded her a little bit. So this book was definitely a journey for her as far as character development goes, and just learning, the some things, like you said, like fate is real in some forms. She'll learn that even more in the next book. And then we have Lucian, Feyre's bestie, who is brave, caring, and we've definitely touched on before, he is loyal. When I say Lucian is loyal, if you do something for Lucian, he is going to have your back like 100%. Feyre is questioning a lot in this book, especially like during her time in the dungeons, whether she can count on him and whether she can trust him, because she's worried that he didn't show up when she needed him, and that's why she had to strike that deal with Rhys. But we learned that the reason that he was unable to show up is because he was actually punished by Amarantha for yelling out like that the worm was on her left during her first trial. And so he was literally like unable to come because like she had him whipped. And
She had him whipped by Tamlin too.
yeah, like she made Tamlin whip
It was
him
bad.
as punishment, and she took away his healing abilities so he couldn't heal at a
Oh,
regular rate. So he was literally unable to heal, like he was unable to walk until the day that he showed up at Feyre's cell for the first time. And yeah, you just like, oh my gosh. But when he's there, he tells her, like, she's like basically questioning him, and I didn't know if I could count on you. Like, you hesitated with the cereal when I called for help, and you've told me so many things, like so many times that you didn't like me, you didn't like my kind. I didn't know if I could count on you. And he tells her, you offered up your name for me. After all that I said to you, all I did, you still offered up your name. Didn't you realize I would help you after that? Oath or no oath. So that just shows like what kind of guy Lucian is. He's like not doing it because he has to, because he swore an oath to Tamlin. Well, I think he loves Feyre. He definitely cares for her as a friend and cares about what happens to her. And he saw her willing to put herself on the line to save him. And so in Lucian's book, like whether he's made an oath to Tamlin or not, like he's got her back. And we love Lucian for it.
with Lucian, I have so much empathy for him. I feel so bad for him. His family life also sucked, and I think that's maybe where he at least wants to help Farah out some, because I don't think Elena and Nesta are obviously as bad as his brothers, but his brothers literally are terrible. Like his dad and his brothers killed the love of his life at the time. That's so fucked up.
And made him
That's
watch.
so fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel so bad for him, and he does have a better place out in the spring court, but I still don't even think that Tamlin really treats him that well either. I feel so bad for this man. I just want him to have the best ending ever. He deserves it so much.
That's why I have so much like hope for Elaine's book. Like I know it's such a big thing that I don't even like to talk about it. But while I love both Azriel and fucking Lucian, I just, like you said, I just want Lucian to have a good ending, whatever that ending may be. He's kind of got like an interesting situation going on right now
Mm-hmm.
with Vasa and Jurian, and that's fun, but I need him to get the ending he deserves, because Lucian, like from book one, just our guy. We love him. So, now we get into Rhysand, the cunning, manipulative, mysterious High Lord. Obviously, we get to learn a lot more about Rhys in the second book, and it's coming, and I'm so excited about it. But this point in the series, he is very, just like I said, mysterious. He clearly is trying to help Feyre, but we don't know why. He's kind of an asshole and treats her not well all the time, but it also seems like he's genuinely cares about her and is willing to risk his own safety in order to help this girl, whether that's because she's their best chance at beating Amarantha, or because, as we know, there's obviously a deeper connection there on his end, as he's known this girl for years at this point, where she obviously knows almost nothing about him. Every time I reread ACOTAR, I'm always just like, gosh, the way that she set this up is just so good. You just don't know what to think about this man. And like I was saying in the last week's episode, it's so hard for me to go back and think about the first time I read ACOTAR without the knowledge of Akamath and just being like, what did I think about him like at that point? Because obviously now my opinion is so skewed. Like I love him, but it's just, what was I thinking about him at this point? Did I just not care? Because was I just, okay, she's gonna save Tamlin, she's gonna save the day, this is all that matters? I'm so jealous of every person that gets to read the ACOTAR series for the first time and just experience this for the first time without the wherewithal and without knowing anything, because it's just such a good story. I've seen people on like social media and stuff who are reading it for the first time and they'll be like texting their friends and they'll be like, why is this side character like saving the fucking day? Where the hell is Tamlin? And I'm like, oh, if only you knew. If only you knew. Rice is
Yeah.
not a side character.
I'm so glad he's not a side character, because I'm sorry, but if Tamlin was the actual main love interest in this whole series, I probably couldn't do it.
I would have hoped. I'd have hoped that if he was, she'd have written him better. Because when I tell you, I've reread this book multiple times, and this is not the first time, but like it was glaring how little this man actually did to fucking help her. Rhys at one point does say like his every move is being watched, but Rhys points out, at least in the second book, like the one opportunity he did have to do something, he fucking wasted by just like trying to grope you like he couldn't control himself, like he's not 500 fucking years old and he's 19 like you and he's never fucking had sex before. Get it together, bro. Get it together. Like,
Yeah, that's not for me.
you're at such risk at that part. Oh, it was so bad.
I can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, y'all, but I really don't like him. I don't like Tamlin. I'm sorry. I don't like him. I will say I am supportive of him having a redemption arc. I do think he'll get one. But in book 1 and book 2,
yeah, he's not that guy, dude. I can't even think about his actions moving forward. Like I cannot. Part 1 of Mist and Fury is the most, makes me just want to literally reach through the pages and strangle the shit out of this man. But at this point, I don't want to say he forced Rhys to like hurt Feyre, but basically that's what happened. He forced him to like start kissing her without her consent because he didn't have another choice. If he didn't start doing that, like Amarantha was going to cause issues because Tamlin went in the room and smeared the paint all over her body and now he's got paint all over him and Rhys is just trying to distract from that fact. And so he's got to surprise Feyre without even asking her. You think that's how Rhys wanted their first interaction to be? No. And when she does get caught, he can't even look at her. Like he's gonna make her feel bad because he caught her making out with Rhys-Anne. Bro, this is your fault. This is your fault. I hate him. I can't. I hate him. Just everything kind of shady and gross that Rhys-Anne had to do in this book to make this situation end up the way that it did. It's all Tamlin's fault. I'm sorry. It like everything that he did to try to make a situation better as best he could. Does that make it right? No. Did he still hurt Feyre? Yes. But it's just everything is because of Tamlin. And then that doesn't even count the fact that, like I said, might have been last week, might have been a couple episodes ago, but all of this could have been over if Tamlin had just fucking sucked it up and taken one for the team and got with Amarantha however many years ago. She's obsessed with you, dude. If anybody has the possibility, the potential to end this, you do. You do the shitty thing. You do the thing that makes you a bad person and sacrifice your pride and your fucking morals, and you do what needs to be done. There's actually a line in here that Feyre is talking to Rhys, and Rhys is talking about how if Tamlin had learned a thing or two about cruelty, about what it really means to be a High Lord, maybe he could have kept the spring court from falling. And that's just true. He's so stuck on his morals, so stuck on not being this person and not doing the right thing. he had the potential to end this so much sooner than it happened. And in the end, were you really even saving your morals? Because you still tricked a 19-year-old girl into falling in love with you. You still took her back and tried to fucking hold her captor when she didn't want to be. You still ignored her signs of PTSD and didn't get her any help when she was really going through shit and needed you. You're a shitty person. You're a horrible fucking person. I hate you.
I don't even have, what you said. I don't know what else to say about him. What you said. I do try to remember, because there are people out there who defend him. And I try to look at his POV from what he had to go through and everything, but I still just don't get it. I don't know. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry if you love Tamlin. We're talking so much shit about him. But as of this moment, he's not great. And there's a lot of other characters that also aren't great, but they could get redeemed, and we'll see what happens. But for me, I will say in this moment, Rysand does so much more than Tamlin ever did. At least he does do some not so great things to her in this book, but at least he shows up for her and he helps her in that trial. He sends that music to her to help her. He heals her. He makes that deal with her. And that deal is what ended up saving her and literally saving everything. And Tamlin, just like you said, like when he finally was able to get Feyre away during the party, whatever, he was just like, I just want to like kiss and make out. Like, oh, hey, how are you? Just, hi, how are you? I can't.
I literally can't. Like,
Dude,
I
I literally just left my literal human house. Not even a house, a fucking mansion. I left this perfect life that I will give him credit for, that he did set them up for success, which is great.
the least you can do after you break into her house and
literally kidnapped her.
murderers.
I literally just left this perfect life that I now have, and to come save your ass, and I'm doing all these terrible trials, literally being kept in a cell, literally in a fucking cell for 3 months. And the first time you get to actually talk to me, you just want to touch me.
That is like the
It's
first
a no for me,
time.
dog.
There's no like, oh my God, I owe you my life. Thank you so much for coming back for me. Anything. Acknowledgement. Let me tell you what your next task is. This is how you can beat Amarantha. Protect yourself. I've got plans in motion. I'm going to send Lucian to help you. Nothing. No, you didn't do any of that. You're a piece of shit. You suck. You suck. You're a horny ass teenage boy who can't keep his hands off this girl that you didn't even want in the beginning. Yes, I understand that there are people that love Tamlin. That's your prerogative. If you love him for whatever reasons, please feel free. Let me know what they are. I will happily listen. But I just cannot deny that he sucks at this part. At this point, really, he sucks for a lot longer than this. And I do often think to myself, how did I read this book the first time and not pick up on any of this shit, bro? Any of it. But I was just reading for the vibes, as I almost always do for the first time. And so I'm not going to be too hard on myself.
Yeah.
But golly, bro, this is glaringly obvious. Reese knows it.
Yeah. Definitely my first read of ACOTAR, I was not analyzing characters at all. So I was just, reading, like you said, for the vibes. I was just reading. But now, like, I will say, once you read all of ACOTAR and then you reread the first one, you're just like, oh my God, there were so many fucking Easter eggs. It's such a good reread. If this is your first read through of the series, we really recommend you reread at least the first 2 books. You get subtle information about Tamlin. The first few chapters, when you first meet him, and you learn that he has these emotional outbursts, so many flags, and then he's always like, oh, I just want you that safe painting at home. But then when you reread it as well, and you notice the things about Rysand, you're just like, oh my gosh, stop. Because his whole chapter 54 speech thing makes so much goddamn sense in this book. It is so, oh my God, it's so...
Any bad thought I've had about him up to that point where he gives that speech in the books, it all gets resolved like when he gives that speech. And God, it still just lives in my head rent free. I love it. I love him. I do. And I'm not the happiest with him right now, but I still love him. My man. I love him.
So Amarantha, she sucks. She's a fucking bitch. She's the worst. Literally the worst. I hate her. She sexually assaults. She's obsessive. She's a stalker. She is just an ick.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about her. I'm glad she died.
Yeah, she deserved everything that she got. She was terrible. She's a bitch. Sometimes, as a dark romance reader, I could be into stalking, but I'm not into it with her. I'm not into really anything that she has. I'm not really into anything that she has to say. She's not Edward Stalker. She's creepy, terrible. I hate her stalker. She has bad intentions. She really only cares about what she wants. She's not here for trying to better anybody or protect anybody. That's not her intentions. She's stalking with the idea of ownership, of possessing, of gaining more power, of making herself stronger, of getting what she wants. She's terrible. I hate her. She's the only person in this book worse than Tamlin. I'm just kidding.
Period.
There might be more.
No, there's definitely more.
I'm just being funny. But yeah.
I can't wait to the next book, y'all. We're gonna talk so much shit.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about this book specifically, but even still,
Yeah.
Tamlin's low level. He's not even actually a villain. He's just kind of an asshole. But Amarantha is a villain. She sucks. She's terrible. Everything she did was intentional.
Yeah, she sucks. I thought of a fun question. Out of this book alone, just the first book, who would you say is your favorite character as of right now?
Lucian, if I'm being 100% honest.
Oh my god, I was gonna say the same. I'm not even kidding. Yeah. I was gonna say the same. Yeah. I'm like, out of everyone here, who is my favorite character
at this book?
And I was like thinking in just book one, and I'm like, I do like Feyre, but yeah, I love Lucian.
I love Feyre. She, like I said, she is smart. She's fierce. She's loyal too. She has a lot of the same qualities. But Lucian, I don't know. I just have this soft spot in my heart for Lucian. He's baby boy. I love him. I don't know.
I know a lot of people don't like him either, but because he's so loyal to Tamlin in the second book.
Yeah, but he's still.
He sides with him, I guess, in a little bit, but he didn't know. We'll talk about it when we get there, but he doesn't fucking know. I will defend him.
Yeah. Yeah, he makes up for a lot of that, too, in the later books. He helps Feyre in Akawar. He helps her after he tries to keep her there. There's a whole plot to that book that we don't need to get into right now, but he goes with her and he saves her, and the way that he's so patient and kind with Elaine. I love Lucian. But it's okay if you don't.
I love Lucian.
It's okay if you don't like him.
You know, that's okay. Not everyone has to like the same characters, but Lucian's definitely my favorite in this book, I would say. I would say Feyre is probably my favorite female character in this book, but my favorite overall character is definitely Lucian.
Yeah, for sure. Lucian's not perfect. He's got that edge to him, and he's so sassy. His one-liners are amazing. Feyre's so young. That's the thing. She's so young. It's not that it's like, when I first read this book, I loved Feyre as like the female main character. Like I said, she has a lot of great qualities, and I still love her as a female main character, but she's not my favorite female main character I've ever read. And part of that is just because she's so young. She has so much to learn about the world. It's not even all her fault. Like, poor baby can't even read. Like, she's been let down by people in her life. She's got a lot to learn, a lot of growing to do. But I do still love her in this book. It's just Lucian, it's just something about him, a pull that's there for me. Now it's time for foreshadowings. We do have quite a bit of foreshadowing in this portion of the book for events going forward and for events that happen in the last little portion of the book here. We're going to go ahead and start with the deal that Feyre makes with Rhysand. Spend a week of her choosing at the Night Court every month. This kind of shows that he believes that there will be a point where they're no longer under the mountain and Feyre will survive. By making that bargain with her, he's putting his faith in her from the jump, basically just solidifying the fact that he really thinks that she's going to make it out of this. Otherwise, what would be the point of making a deal with her? And then also, we know that in Akamath, this comes back in a big way, very big way. Obviously, this is what allows Rhys to stop her from marrying Tamlin in the beginning. It's what allows him to come save her when shit's not going the right way and Tamlin locks her up. Literally. Even though we do find out in Akamath as well that technically he still would have been breaking rules by just going into the court to get her at that point, but that's why he had to send more and do all these things to like work around it, because it technically still would have been breaking rules if he had done that, because he wasn't ready to claim her as his mate at that point. Obviously, the big thing for me is just that, like, clearly he believes in her, because if he didn't, would be the point of making this deal if he thinks she's going to be dead before the end of the book. Then moving on, we have Feyre and Rhysand have a cute little moment where they're opening up to each other after she has to clean out his fireplace. And Feyre asked him about Fire Night and like why he was even there or how he was even there based on the kind of captivity he's being held by Amarantha. And he basically says, as for Fire Night, I had my reasons to be out then. Do not think, Feyre, that it did not cost me. So this alludes to a few things that we find out in Akamath. First of all, we find out that the reason that Rhys had to get to Fire Night, the reason it was so important to him was because he had been seeing visions of Feyre for 3 years. And once she crossed over the wall, the vision started getting stronger, and he literally saw her standing at the field on Kalanmai, and that was why he shows up at that point, because he saw her like during the preparations. He didn't even know who she was at that point. He just knew that these visions that I keep seeing, this girl is at this place. This is my one opportunity to get out. So he lies to Amarantha and tells her that he wanted to go check out Kalanmai to see if there was traitors there and if people were like conspiring against her. And so once he finds Feyre, because he's lied, he actually ends up taking those 3 pikes that were going to like do that had bad intentions for her that he saves her from earlier on, and he takes them back to Amarantha to be tortured. He wipes their memories, makes them believe all this shit that isn't true, just so he could like basically make true what he said he was going out to do. So definitely some major foreshadowing there where he tells her like, you have no idea what it cost me in order to be out at that point. And this is just another example of just how fucked up Amarantha is. And she was also super paranoid at this point because it was getting closer and closer to that curse being broken, or to the 50 years that the curse had, and she was worried that Tamlin might find a way to break it. So she was like kind of paranoid. But yeah, she was just, once again, crazy bitch. And then further on in chapter 39, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. We're quoted by Rhys, but perhaps if he'd learned a thing or two about cruelty, about what it means to be a true High Lord, it would have kept the Spring Court from falling. So Feyre responds to him when he says this with, well, your court fell too. And we know, looking back, that's not actually true. That he did sacrifice the Court of Nightmares, and he sacrificed himself under the mountain. But in his final acts, he did a lot to make sure that his true court, his true home, Valaris, was protected from Amarantha. And this is just some of the things that he's alluding to when he says, if Tamlin had the cruelty in him to make the tough decisions, then maybe they wouldn't be in the situation they're in. And also around this time, this is the point where Rhysand is interrogating the fairy from the summer court that Amarantha like called him up to question in front of the whole court. And when Rhys does that, he is torturing him. Everybody can see that he has him by the mind, but he lies and tells Amarantha that they weren't conspiring against anything, that there was nothing deeper going on. But we find out later that's not the case, that they were plotting against Amarantha, and that Rhys kept that a secret. And this is why the High Lord of the Summer Court, who is there present, seems relieved after the interrogation. And then this was just kind of a little thing. It probably doesn't mean shit, but it just took me by surprise that Feyre Darling is Rhys's whole thing that he calls Feyre, especially throughout the second book. He says it so many times. And it's only said twice in this book. First, it's said by Rhys when she is cleaning out the lentils out of his fireplace. He says, like, Feyre Darling, what are you doing in my room covered in soot or whatever? But then Amarantha says it the second time. She says, Feyre darling when she's referring to the second riddle that Feyre has to solve in the second task. So, like I said, maybe it doesn't mean anything at all, but it was just strange to me that she specifically says Feyre darling, and it's like this whole thing for Rhys in the second book. It was probably just Sarah J. Maas just writing, but when I read that, I was like, wait a second, she calls her Feyre darling?
That kind of debunks the theory that Rhysand's last name is Darling.
Yeah.
Because if that was true, why would Amarantha call Feyre by Rhysand's last name?
Right.
Because she doesn't know she was about to fucking die.
True. She
Oh
didn't
my
know
god,
that was
that's
his
like,
mate either.
yeah, that really debunks that whole theory. Okay, Rhysand's last name is not Darling.
We'll get to that in the theories portion. Isn't that kind of weird that she's like, yes, Feyre
Yeah.
darling? I always read her voice like that. Probably because the graphic
Really?
audio so ridiculous. Yeah, so that was weird to me. It's also around this time that Feyre is contemplating basically after the second trial, she's really not in a good place. She realizes the fact that I can't read almost cost me my life. Like, I should have been dead. I'm not cut out for this. I'm not prepared for this. There's no way I'm going to make it through the third trial. I should be dead at this point. If it was not for Rhys, I would be. And she's being really hard on herself, and her thoughts have taken like a really dark turn. And Rhys comes to kind of make her feel better. He does give her a lot more shit, but he also, like, at the same time, this is when he licks the tears off her face. And so he also, while he's fucking with her and making her kind of uncomfy, he's also like saving her. And she says that. She says, it took me a long while to realize that Rhysand, whether he knew it or not, had effectively kept me from shattering completely. When Tamlin was doing jack all, not doing shit, Rhys put himself on the line to come visit her and really make sure she was doing okay, because she wasn't. She was not doing well after that trial. Rhys is always putting himself on the line for our girl Feyre.
Wait, when I was listening to the audiobook for our reread, really, I'm sorry, but if I'm crying and a man licks tears from my face, please don't.
Girl.
Please don't. Why are you licking my tears?
Girl, that's weird as shit. That's some fae shit. If that happened in the real world, if I was a fae, maybe. They do weird shit like that. They're very, like, what is it? Connected to nature or whatever?
I don't know.
Not connected to nature, but they're like, what is it? Their baser instinct. That's why the whole mate thing and the possession and why they're called male and female and all this stuff. But if a man did that to me in real life, I'd be like, get the fuck off of me. That's disgusting. But Feyre does say it's disgusting. Feyre does say it's disgusting.
It would give me an ick. I would be like, please don't. What the
But
okay, sorry.
Oh, Feyre does say it's disgusting, but Rhys says, don't forget, we're connected. I can tell that you were kind of into that a little bit. Just saying. She liked it.
Good for her. Good for her.
Yeah. But yeah, this is fiction. That would never happen in real life. If it did.
Yeah.
And then now we are moving on, and this is chapter 41. Like I said, it's kind of right after that whole thing where Rhys came and saved her, but Feyre's really not doing well. Like, we start to see some of Feyre's mental health declining. She's having especially negative thoughts about herself. Thoughts about her future are increasingly pessimistic. And this is just foreshadowing for what occurs for her in the next book. Feyre really struggles with PTSD after her time under the mountain, but her mental health was already declining before she got out from under the mountain. And we see it here. Yeah, like, it's really sad to see her go from where Lucian comes in and he's like, why did you come back? And she's, shut it. I'm here now. I got to do this. I got to be here for this. She's so strong and she's so bold. And after she defeats the worm, she throws the spear at Amarantha and challenges her. And she's tough. She's not some weak-minded individual or anything like that. But the offense of what is going on in this world, what's happening to her, is just really starting to take her to a place that, like, is just not good for her and not good for her mental health. And then we get another moment here of some foreshadowing when Feyre is listening to the Adder. She hears him say a lot about the King of Hybern's plans. He is planning a war, and he has the ability to take away Amarantha's powers. Is this more foreshadowing that Amarantha may have been given powers by him or even a human form? We talked about it in last week's episode that Amarantha may not be the Fae that she presents herself to be. And I'm just wondering if this is just a little bit more foreshadowing past. And then also kind of foreshadowing that the reason that he's so fucking powerful is because he has the cauldron at this point. And he can do all sorts of shit with the cauldron. That's also part of where his power lies.
I hate him.
Yeah, he sucks. In my opinion, Amarantha's worse than him, but only because he is like worse, but he sends all the little people to do his bidding.
Yeah,
He's not actually that scary himself. Like he's just a dude.
right. I picture him like low key, kind of like Lord Farquaad from Shrek.
Yeah, that's literally
So
he is.
when I think of King of Hybern, that is like the image that's in my head. And I just am not threatened by him. I'm not. I don't
Yeah.
know. But Amarantha is like the evil queen. She is scary. She literally was able to take over Prithians. The King of Hybern's help, obviously, but I don't know. The King of Hybern.
Yeah. She kind of fucked him over and he let her live. He didn't do anything about it. She stole his spells and captured the court. She fucked up the first war for him because of the whole Jurian situation. And he didn't retaliate in any way. I'm not scared of him. And yes, he is literally Lord Farquaad. It's canon. He is, I know he's supposed to be hot, actually, as all Fae are, and he's probably actually like some middle-aged attractive dude. But in my head, he's Lord Farquaad, just sitting in
No.
his little chair.
Yeah.
He's the same height as the cauldron. And actually, have you seen the fan art of the cauldron? Somebody made a really good meme about it, but it's the way that somebody drew the fan art, and it's a cauldron is this fucking massive thing over a fire in the middle of the room. It's like huge. And I'm like thinking to myself, like the way that I pictured the cauldron just being this tiny pot.
I picture the cauldron as the Halloween cauldrons you get at the store.
Literally from Hocus Pocus, strake out of Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, small. That's why I was always like, wait,
How did they
what do you
fit in
mean
there?
people can go inside?
Me too, because that's exactly the image I had in my head. Just Hocus Pocus, Sanderson sisters standing there twirling shit. I'm like, what? I'm like, wait a second, this shit is huge. It's so funny, but some of the fan art is
Yeah.
gorgeous, but it's just not what I pictured in my head. And that's why
It's not what I picture either.
I love fan art, because sometimes it can just introduce you to a whole different shit than like you even imagined in your own head. Also, around this time, we get Feyre talking about when she was in her cell and how she was making it through. Like I said, her mental health was not doing well. And she said, sometimes if I stared at the ceiling long enough, it became the vast expanse of a starry night. I became a small, unimportant thing that blew away in the wind. But this is Reese sending comfort down the line to her. She thinks she's hallucinating, but we know that this, like, the starry night sky is Reese's comfort. He does say that. And that was his way of comforting her. Either that or it was her mind's way of knowing that was what was going to be comforting for her one day as well. And so that's just really interesting. And then finally, kind of like in line with that, we get the quote, up and up, building to a palace in the sky, a hall of alabaster and moonstone, where all that was lovely and kind and fantastic dwelled in peace. I wept to be so close to that palace, wept from the need to be there. Everything I wanted was there. The one I loved was there. Now, I love this quote because this is when Reese is sending the music to her cell. Like it's the last night before the trial. She's not doing well. Reese can feel that through the bond, so he sends music into her cell. She refers to it as not the same, like, basic music that they've been playing by the fairies. It's not music to dance to. She says it's music to worship to, music that fills her soul, basically. And when she's making this quote, literally right after she starts talking about Tamlin, because at this point she thinks that Tamlin is the person that she loves. Tamlin is there. I love him. I need to be near him. But this quote specifically just shows, I love Sarah J. Maas, that there's a reason that she says everything I wanted was there. The one I loved was there. So even though she thinks it's Tamlin, this is literally her talking about the House of Wind, and she knows that the person that she loves is there. And I just think that's so cute. I love that little nod that they threw in there, especially because, like I said, like this quote ends on like I forget what it's called when it's like a long dash basically. And she goes straight into talking about Tamlin, and it's no, sis, that's not what it is. That's not what the music is telling you. He's not the one you love.
So a few other really quick foreshadowings from the last 2 chapters of this book. Obviously, Feyre is able to be revived by the High Lords, and this comes into play again in Akor. Yeah, it happens again.
They're going to be giving all their power away soon enough.
I know. It makes me curious about how powerful some of them can be now, because they already gave their power away to 2 people now. So I'm like, maybe it'll come into play later. Also in chapter 46 is when Rhysand goes to say goodbye to Feyre, and he is super shocked by something. And so basically, from what we learned in Akamath, Rhysand realizes that Feyre is his mate when she dies. And then when she's revived into High Fae and he goes to say goodbye to her again, that's when it really hits him. All of his instincts when he goes to say goodbye to her, when she's High Fae, just literally snap into place. And then he freaks out and he's just like, oh, he's shocked. He stumbles back and then he disappears and he goes back to Valoris. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. Both those scenes when you reread ACOTAR just hit different.
Gosh.
Just hit different.
Also just knew she was his mate, and he let her go off to be with this bum because she was like, he wanted to make her happy. Think of the sacrifice that takes. We know what mates mean in this world. Like, we know like the instinct and what it is like when you find your mate, like how possessive you want to be, how like the whole like you're mine, like you belong to me. And Rhys just is like, if it's gonna make her happy, I love her more than that. Let her go be with this clown. And if it's right, she'll find her way back to me. And I just love it. I love it so much.
It's really good foreshadowing. And also the last thing that we wanted to discuss is that at the end of chapter 46, when Amarantha gets like carried off, like her dead body is getting carried off by a bitch, Feyre notes that Jurian's eye and his finger aren't there anymore. Ooh. We know what happens. He also comes back to life.
And he's kind of not cool in the beginning, but he comes around.
Not, but then you understand, oh, okay, he's a double agent. Okay, cool.
Lots of double agents around here.
I don't know. It really is.
Yeah, that's ACOTAR, man. That is all of the character discussions, foreshadowing, and everything there is, or that we have for the first book. I'm sure there is even more that on another reread we might be able to find, flesh out, or anything like that. But no, we had so much fun with our reread of ACOTAR and just reading it with different eyes, different viewpoints, and we're super excited to discuss the next part. And that being said, I want to go ahead and give that second spoiler warning now. Thank you guys for staying with us this far. We've definitely enjoyed breaking down ACOTAR with you, but this is your warning to leave if you have not finished all 3 of SJM's series, including House of Flame and Shadow. We will be touching on events that occur in all 3 series starting now. All right, they're
period.
So there's not a whole lot of theory connections for this one, but there is a big one. And this is something that we have kind of discussed in some of our episodes before. One in particular, I think it might have been our CC3 theories. And so I want to go ahead and revisit it now that we've gotten a little bit more information from this book. Really, it's not even more information. It's just more information that we've gotten from Hofast and the Sky and Breath reread and everything. I want to touch on it again. And that is the big theory or the big understanding of, are Prythian and Aurelia the same? Are they the same place? Are they the same world? What are they? And so what sparked this conversation up again for me is that in chapter 37, of Akatar, we hear Rhysand say that all of the High Lords have a beast roaming beneath their skin, roaring to get out. I do believe that this may lead into our theory about the world of Aurelia being at the very least connected to Prithian. Maybe they're not the same worlds, but they are in some way connected. The High Lords specifically all have beast forms, just like the Fae from Throne of Glass. And we do not know the last names of the majority of them. This has to mean something, okay? Also, in House of Sky and Breath, chapter 73, we get the line from Rigelus. The Midgard shifters were Fae from a different planet. All of the Fae in that world shared their form with an animal. The Mer descended from them too. Perhaps they once shared a world with your breed of Fae, but they had been alone on their planet for long enough to develop their own gifts. Okay, if this is not the line that just says it is actually factually true, I don't know what is. We know that Bryce's ancestors come from Prithian. Okay, we know that after the events of House and Flame and Shadow. And we know that the shifters, like Lydia, came from Aurelia. This is just fact. Rigel is saying they possibly once shared a world. I just really believe that the High Lords, at the very least, their lineages are descended from the Throne of Glass characters. Okay, it has to be true. People argue. People will say it can't be true. The timelines. Listen. If this is not true after this, I don't know what to say. They have to. They have to. But I will say that I am amending my theory so that I think it's possible that all the Fae actually came from the same world. So literally all Fae came from Aurelia. I'm not saying that Prithian and Aurelia are the same world anymore, but I am saying that literally all Fae came from Aurelia. It's possible that their worlds literally overlap and there was like a rift in time, and that is how they traveled through, and that is why Prithian is happening technically at the same time as Throne of Glass, because we know in Akasoff chapter 13, we get the quote, whether there is merely one existence, our existence, or if it might be possible for worlds to overlap, occupying the same space but separated by time. Is that not saying that they are the same space, or it's that it's not the very least possible that they're the same space and there's just a time like difference there? They could be happening at the same time. They're here happening at the same time, but it's different times in their own worlds. I'm positive about this now. And that just leads me even more into thinking that Aiden and Lysandra are the ancestors of Tamlin. And I'm sure it goes so much further than that. Urine being the day court ancestor makes so much sense to me. Just so many things, which is so funny because I love Helion, but it's just so funny he descends from Kale. Anyway, so, and then that being said, like, just think about some of the other connections. Like, we know that the description of Valaris is almost identical to the dreams that Rowan has of what Aelin is planning on turning Orinth into. The children laughing in the street, the river sparkling beyond. Both Terrasen and the Night Court are completely surrounded by mountains of snow and pine. We have the music and the artist quarter that Aelin spoke of that are literally a reality in Valaris. There's the similarities between the Taurus Esme and the libraries. The three mountains with the palaces underneath all resemble the mountain that the Taurus Esme is literally carved into. I don't know. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I know we've talked about this before, but as I was reading through this, I was just like, that in addition to the extra knowledge that we've gotten from House of Flame and Shadow, knowing 100% that Bryce comes from Prithian and that Lydia is from Aurelia. So obviously those worlds are involved here. Hearing that just like the Midgard shifters, all of the High Lords have shifting forms, not just Tamlin, not just Rhys. It just really made me think about that. And it makes sense that the Autumn Court is almost like a throwaway, like giving them a last name. They're the only court I can think of that has a last name, because who's to say that like one of Aelin's daughters or one of Dorian's daughters didn't marry somebody else and that's how we got the Autumn Court? But the reason that the other last names are hidden is because their last names be a dead giveaway for this theory, in my opinion.
I'm very much on board with this theory. I always have been. I love this theory.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. A lot of people are probably going to be like, well, how does it make sense when Aelin was like falling between the worlds and she saw Rhysand and Feyre? But the thing is, what you said earlier in A Cornice Over Flames, there's conversations about if worlds overlap. And I think they do. I really think that Prythian and Aurelia overlap. It makes sense. There's so many connections to it, especially that quote that you said that Rigela said. It just makes so much goddamn sense that I'm just like, it has to mean something, especially with us not having anyone's last fucking names.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Why is she hiding it? Why is she hiding it? And I read somebody point out the fact that, okay, so you get the end of Sky and Breath and Rhysand introduces himself to Bryce, right? Who introduces themselves to a brand new stranger as only their first name? Hi, I'm Rhysand. He even calls her by her last name. Hi,
Yeah.
Bryce Quinlan. I'm Rhysand.
He does.
Why are you not saying your last name? Is everybody Bono in
All I
this
know
universe?
is
Everybody Cher, Bono, Beyonce? No, it doesn't make any sense. Why does Lucian have a last name if all the High Lords don't have them? I'm suspicious.
all I know is that Rhysand's last name is not Darling. That's all I know.
Yeah, like I said,
that would be cute, but it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
it would be really
So
cute, but it's just not. I don't think that's accurate. But this theory has legs. I'd almost bet money on it at this point that we're right, that they descend from the Throne of Glass Fae. Rigel is specifically saying they possibly once shared a world. Like, it's not possible. He didn't just throw that in there. Why would he have thrown that in there? Why would she have thrown that in there, rather, if it didn't mean something? And also, it just would make sense. So basically, what that would entail is that there was a crossing before ancestors crossed into Midgard. And that would make sense because at that point, there was still High Lords, but there was like a High King of Prythian at that point. Maybe Fionn is literally related to Aelin in some way, and that's how when he became High King, he became High King. It's almost like when I was like talking about how it was still a theory before House of Flame and Shadow that Bryce was like the Dust Court lineage. I was like, it's not even a theory in my mind. It's just fact. It's just, this is what we know. And it turned out to be true. And that's kind of how I feel about this. I can't even think of this as a theory anymore. In my head, it's just canon. Of course, I could be wrong. Of course, there's always opportunity. The only person who knows if this is actually true is Sarah J. Maas herself. But it's just, in my mind, I'm like, no, this one line, we all have a beast form within us. Specifically the High Lords, not any other Fae. They come from Aurelia. At least their ancestors do. 100,000%, I believe that. But another example is like the tattoos at the Night Court, Rhysand specifically. They're very similar to word marks. Like, I've seen people talk about this before. How do word marks get into a world where there's no gods if they don't come from Aurelia? Also, pointing out that, and like we did very early on in ACOTAR, our ACOTAR read-through, pointing out that people no longer believe in the gods. That means that at some point they did and something changed. What gods? The same gods that Aurelia believes in? How did word go from Aurelia to Crescent City if there was no body who brought it over there? It just literally makes sense that this is past, present, and future, but in the way of they're all happening at the same time.
it literally makes so much sense. It makes sense.
We already know that Midgard is technically the future while existing at the same time as Prythian. We know that because Bryce travels to Prythian and the times are different. How could that not also be true for Prythian and Aurelia?
Because also it's like in Silver Flames, again, Guys, reread Silver Flames. If you're ever at Crescent City, reread Silver Flames. The fucking Easter eggs in this book is so much. In Silver Flames, there's so much mention of how time is also a planet. There is discussion about time, and it's not just put in there for no reason. And the only reason why it would be put in there is for a theory like this. It just makes sense. I'm dying to know more about this, and I really hope that we get answers sooner than later.
I know.
I need so many answers for so many things.
I know.
But feel good about this. If we're wrong.
Yeah, if we're wrong, but I'm sorry. I believe this. In my head, this is just, until I see it on paper that this is not the truth, this is canon in my head. Now, the only question would be, which courts descend from which people in Throne of Glass? Which I think I've said before. It makes sense to me if Rhys descends from Lorcan and Elide, because he has a lot of powers that are similar to the whole Vogue witches thing. We know that Elide is a witch, even though her powers are never explored. We know that Lorcan is a super strong fae who's a shadow wielder, and we know that he's literally connected to the god named Hellas. Does that not sound like it could be the great granddaddy of Rhysand and grandmama? I'm just saying. And then also, I'd bet money that Tamlin's punk ass comes from Aiden's punk ass. That just adds up.
Yeah, it adds up. That makes sense. I'm sorry. Sorry for like Aiden.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah, his name is Aiden. I'm always like Aiden. But yeah.
Do you know that his name backwards is No Idea?
Yes, I did see that. I see that. That's fucking
hilarious. I saw that online and it blew my fucking mind. I was like, oh, okay, makes sense. Makes sense. I don't fuck with him. I don't like him.
It's hilarious. He was cool in the beginning, and he was not so cool anymore. Not for me. I still feel bad for him for what Aelin did, because Aelin was fucking with a lot of them, but doesn't give you an excuse to treat a woman like that ever. I'd like to think that Aelin's bad, and he is. Tamlin does do some fucked up shit, but personally, what Aedion did to Lysandra is...
I love her too, and I'm like, girl,
reason that
why are you with him?
To make any of that happen.
I'm trying to think of the other courts. The Autumn Court is the only one that I'm kind of thinking about.
And that's why I think that they are the only one that's named. Because they could be from some fae that doesn't matter. They have fire, so I'm assuming that they somehow hail from Brandon's line. But what does that mean? And that could also be how Lydia's ancestor got to Midgard, because if we know that the Autumn Court is the court that sided with the Dusk Court and went over to Midgard with them, so it would kind of make sense if one of Brandon's descendants was part of the Autumn Court, and that's how that line got into Midgard in the first place.
I have no thoughts. I have empty brain, no thoughts.
Just saying. Kind of makes sense though, because like specifically, that's the one bloodline from Throne of Glass that we know is in Midgard. So it would just make sense if the Autumn Court and the Dusk Court were the ones that came over. It would make sense that was how, through the Autumn Court. And they have fire powers.
Right.
But
damn, I don't want the Autumn Court to be a descendant.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Autumn Court, I don't like the people that...
Not everybody sucks though. Lucian's mom is there. And
yeah, that's true.
Lucian's there, technically.
And potentially Eris might end up being a good guy. Mm-hmm. We'll see. He was double agent. But there's a lot of questions still about him and his past that we need to learn about. I just thought of something that I saw online recently, but I saw a theory about what if Moore comes from the Kraken witches, because we don't know shit about her.
Oh, she's definitely the Kraken witches. But what would make us think that she is from the Kraken witches?
I looked some of this up. This post on Reddit is by a username named OKScientist69. And they were saying that Moore could possibly be a Kraken witch with her healing abilities. Krakens also get a red cloak per tradition, and Moore is always wearing red. And they also point out in Frost and Starlight, in Moore's chapter, it says, quote, yes, her blood called to her, Go as far and wide as you can. Go on the wind. And then in Queen of Shadows, Manon says, quote, you never heard the wind calling your name? Stop. And then this is so interesting, but someone also pointed out on the comments under the username Seagirl, but it's mentioned that Rysand says more is the one I call in when armies fail. And this person says, could it be because she is capable of the yielding?
Ooh.
That is such a,
but then
so interesting.
That would mean that he was willing to sacrifice her in the final hours. But I'm not saying that's not right. I'm just saying that's kind of dark. But I'm not against it because, like I said, it almost makes sense too. We know, like I said, that more is related to Rhysand in a way. And if that lineage somehow got passed down from a lead, it would make sense.
Because I've always wondered about Mor. We don't know that much about her. Like, all we know is she has a power of truth, but she lies all the fucking time. So this is mean. I don't know how I feel about Mor at the moment. So I really want to learn more about her. I don't necessarily want her to have her own book, but I need to know more about her because there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
There's so much, but it would go with our theory that Illyria and Prythian are like overlapping if she came from the Kraken witches.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fucking dope, to be honest. I would love that.
Yeah, the Kraken witches are nothing to fucking play with. And Manon is one of my, if she's not my favorite SJM character, she is top 3. I say it every single time. I love her. You know what? When you were talking about the truth thing, it made me think of when she lies and tells that village that she plans that whole thing for the witches to attack, and then she lies and convinces them that she was a samurai. I was just like, damn, she was good at that too. She was good at lying and manipulating situations. I would just be down for it.
Shit.
Just because I need Manon to be related to somebody in this world. I really like that. And also,
wait, if she was related to Manon, that means she would also have a bit of Volg in her too.
Mm-hmm. Well, it just makes sense if the Night Court in general does.
Wait, but then Rhysand would also be related.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
I'm computing. My brain is having a moment where I'm like, wait, because I have also seen theories about, I do think it's more plausible that Rhysand descends from Lorcan and a lead, but what if his family line descends from Manon and Dorian?
Yeah,
that would make sense. Fuck. Okay. Okay. There's so many things. Yeah. It's so exciting.
It is. It's a lot to think about, and I cannot wait until we get that reveal. But one thing I know for sure, they descend from them. Period. I don't know which of them descends from, but they come from them.
Stop. Because what if Rhysand's last name is Halliford?
A lot of people, that's a huge theory, is if its last name is Havilyard, that people are like, that, because that would have literally broken the fucking internet if he had been like, hi, Bryce Quinlan, I'm Rhysand Havilyard.
Not me pronouncing his last name wrong this whole time, but yeah.
It would have broken the internet. My brain would still be broken. I probably wouldn't have even been able to read House of Flame and Shadow. There's no way that she could have dropped that at the end of House of Sky and Breath and then had House of Flame and Shadow be what it was. It would have had to have been a different book. You cannot drop something like that and then have the follow-up be what House of Flame and Shadow was. And that's probably why she didn't do it. If that is the fucking case. But also, what's Lorcan's last name? Lorcan?
Lorcan.
What if it's
Lord Lorcan Locken?
Hilarious, dude. But what if it's Locken? Either one.
I'm shitting my pants.
I'm dying.
Literally.
I'm dying. My name is Rhysand Locken. Get the fuck out of here. There's so many questions. There's so many big moments to come. I'm so excited for it.
Oh gosh.
This is my favorite portion of the episodes. It's just
we just talk shit.
Yeah, we don't know what's happening. But I know that these motherfuckers descended from these motherfuckers. I do know that. I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but I know that. It's true, guys. It's true. That it's canon. I'm sorry. It just is. It's just factual. It's what happened. All right. As always, that was so much fun. I love talking about theories. It's like one of my favorite things. We could go on, but I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to you guys. We do hope that you enjoyed our discussions on ACOTAR. In our next episode, we will be beginning our coverage of ACOMAF with chapters 1 through 7. Email or DM us anything that you'd like us to touch on relevant to those chapters specifically. Finally, again, my hair is looking crazy. Finally, again, please comment, subscribe, review, rate, and share us with your bookish friends, as well as giving us a follow over on Instagram and TikTok. We have so much fun over there, you guys. We have all sorts of different content, including content about other romantasy things that we will be getting into further on the podcast, but we haven't had a chance to discuss yet. So make sure you go check it out and give us a follow if you're interested. We love being a part of the book community, and we cannot wait to see all the ways that we're going to grow even more. You guys have been so amazing, supportive. As we say every episode, we can't thank you guys enough. It means the world to us. Every DM, every message, comment under our videos. So make sure you comment under this one and tell us what your thoughts are, any theories that you may have, or anything that you're excited for us to get into when it comes to ACOMAF. And that being said, as always, I'm going to leave you guys with a quote. And today's quote is, "Be glad of your human heart, Feyre. Pity those who don't feel anything at all." All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.